Hello students, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we'll solve the writing section of the May 2021 US SAT. So let's begin. Passage 1. Shedding light on glowing coral. Some corals are fluorescent. This means that they absorb one color of light and emit a different one. Now here, I have some colors are fluorescent. This means that they. So if I say this means, that's a new sentence. So I can't put a comma after fluorescent because if I have two independent sentences, I need to have a semicolon or a full stop. So A can't be right. Which it means is wrong. Which means would make sense, but not which it. And meaning is wrong. So the best answer is option D. Some corals are fluorescent, meaning that they absorb one color of light and emit a different one. Scientists have learned that shallow water corals fluoresce as part of a symbiotic or mutually beneficial relationship with algae living inside. Now, I have to choose the correct pronoun, right? The correct pronoun for which subject? Shallow water corals. Because it is shallow water corals that form a symbiotic relationship with algae that live inside them, the corals. So the best answer for question 2 is B. By absorbing potentially harmful ultraviolet light and emitting safer pink or purple light, fluorescent corals effectively provide a sun block for the algae. The algae produce oxygen and other products that the corals need through photosynthesis. So in these two lines, I'm describing the symbiotic relationship. On the corals part, they absorb harmful ultraviolet light and emit the safer light, which provides a sun block for the algae. And algae provide oxygen needed for photosynthesis, right? So let's just read the options. So I'm reading from here. Fluorescent corals effectively provide a sunblock for the algae, which through photosynthesis produce oxygen and other products that the corals need. So this is a good answer, right? Because we know that algae through photosynthesis produce oxygen. It's also a concise answer, so I'm going to keep it. Option B, they provide a sunblock for the algae. Happening through photosynthesis, the algae's production of oxygen and other products is needed by the corals. Now this is, one, it is too long. It has more words than are necessary. And it's not as concise as A. So I'm going to cancel B. A sunblock for the algae, and the corals need oxygen and other products produced by the algae. This happens through photosynthesis. Again, I can say the same thing with fewer words and in a tighter manner. So C is not good. Corals effectively provide a sunblock for the algae with the production of oxygen and other products that the corals need coming from the algae's photosynthesis. So this also is not correct. The best answer here is option A, most concise and correctly conveys the meaning. However, this finding does not explain why corals in deeper water where sunlight is less intense also fluoresce. Now here, where sunlight is less intense is a non-essential clause. It is something which is additional information. So I should put a comma before and after it. There is already a comma after it. So there should be a comma before where. So the best answer would be option C. My main sentence is, this finding does not explain why corals in deeper water also fluoresce. And the fact that in deeper water, sunlight is less intense, that part is additional. Hoping to shed light on this mystery, a team of marine biologists from England and Israel began studying the chlorophyll, light-absorbing pigments involved in photosynthesis within symbiotic algae. They exposed a sample of coral to different colors of light, finding that blue light, the most lavish color of light in deep water, only reached chlorophyll close to the surface of the coral. So the most we are trying to say that blue light is the one that's most prevalent, the most prevalent color, right? So the best answer for that would be abundant, the most abundant color of light. That is the one that's found in the most amount. Lavish has a connotation of something on which a lot of money has been spent, right? Like a lavish feast. So that doesn't make sense in this context because here we are talking about the color of light. Generous is kind, so that also cannot be used with light. And overflowing indicates it indicates wastage. It indicates something that is more than is necessary, and that is not what we are trying to say here. We are trying to say that it is the most abundant color of light in deep water, right? So, I was saying they exposed a sample of coral to different colors of light, finding that blue light only reached chlorophyll close to the surface of the coral. However, red-orange light, the color emitted by deep water corals, penetrated farther into the coral tissue, reaching more of the chlorophyll inside. The team therefore hypothesized that deep water corals' conversion of blue light into red-orange light maximizes photosynthesis in the symbiotic algae, contributing to better overall coral survival. So basically, the point that the passage is making at this point is that in deep water, fluorescence happens because there is the need to convert blue light into red-orange light, because it is red-orange light that penetrates deeper into the coral tissue, and that is needed for photosynthesis by the algae. Now, if I'm saying the team hypothesized that, then I don't need any punctuation after hypothesized. I certainly don't need a colon because a colon can only come at the end of a complete sentence. And the team hypothesized is not a complete sentence. I will not put a comma after that or a dash after that because it's just a continuous statement. So B and C are wrong as well. The best answer is option D. You don't need any punctuation. To test this hypothesis, the research team conducted a 2-year experiment that compared the survival of fluorescent and non-fluorescent specimens from the genus Echinophilia under conditions that simulated deep water light. After 12 months, the fluorescent Echinophilia were deteriorating, but only about 80% of the non-fluorescent Echinophilia survived. So I need to look at the graph and provide accurate description of the information. So after 12 months, I can see that the fluorescent echinophilia, the gray one, is existing completely. All 100% have survived, but the non-fluorescent, only 80% have survived. So deteriorating is not correct, right? Because deteriorating is to go down in quality, is to go down in numbers, and that's not what's happened. Thriving is a good answer. To thrive is to sustain life, to continue to exist. So I like thriving because they did thrive. Higher in number than they were at the start of the study. That's not true. That's incorrect. And they were at the lowest percent in the study. That's also not correct. So the best answer is option B. All of them survived, they thrived. The fluorescent echinophilia were thriving, but only about 80% of the non-fluorescent echinophilia survived. Around the 19-month mark, the non-fluorescent echinophilia had dwindled to about 30% of their original amount. So you can see that at the 19-month mark, the non-fluorescent have dwindled to 20%, not 30. So this would be C, not 30%, but 20%. By 22 months, the non-fluorescent echinophilia had died off completely, while 100% of the fluorescent echinophilia still lived. These results suggest that the red-orange glow of deep water corals might indeed be a symbiotic survival mechanism, just like those of corals in shallow waters. So I know that here I'm saying the red-orange glow of deep water corals. So I need to compare the glow to glow, right? So first of all, I can't say those of because those is plural and glow is singular. So there's clearly something wrong with the option as it is written because it takes a plural pronoun when a singular is needed. Since I'm comparing glow to glow, option C looks like a good answer. These results suggest that the red-orange glow of deep water corals is a symbiotic survival mechanism, just like the sun-blocking glow of corals in shallow water. So I'm comparing glow with glow in option C, so that looks like a good option. B is incorrect because I'm comparing glow with results. And D is incorrect because if I delete it, then I'll end up comparing glow with corals. So when I compare, I'm supposed to compare like items. So the answer here is C. Okay, the writer wants to add the following sentence to the paragraph. They began by placing echinophilia that expressed a red fluorescent protein and non-fluorescent echinophilia into an aquarium that was exposed to blue light. So where should I place this? To test this hypothesis, they conducted a 2-year experiment and that compared the survival of fluorescent and non-fluorescent specimens under conditions that simulated deep water light, right? And then I'm describing what those conditions were and how they simulated those conditions, right? Then it says after 12 months. So this is already giving me a result of the experiment. So this has to come after the description of the experiment. So the best placement for this would be after sentence 1. In sentence 1, I'm introducing how they will test the hypothesis. And then what are the details of that experiment is given here. So option B after sentence 1. The researchers hope that their findings can be used to improve coral conservation plans. For example, some plans propose moving threatened shallow water corals to deep waters, but this study suggests that without the right fluorescent pigments, those corals might not survive relocation. Therefore, as team member Jörg Weidenmann points out, it is of the utmost importance that we do our best to keep their homes in shallow water habitable. So this talks about how they hope to use the findings of the study to improve coral conservation. And here I'm talking about one example of where this study would prove helpful. Some plans propose that you should move threatened shallow water corals to deep waters, but this study suggests that unless the right fluorescent pigment is present, that may not be the best option. So it is an example of how this study will help conservation efforts, right? So I like, for example, as a connector, so I'm going to keep that. Okay, conversely means it's like, for example, if A leads to B, then conversely, B is caused by A. So it's the same logic expressed in a reverse fashion, right? So A leads to B. In other words, conversely, B is caused by A. So the same logic expressed differently. So that's not what is happening here. The next statement is an example of what the first statement is saying. So B is wrong. Okay, meanwhile indicates that something else is happening, right? We are discussing this, but something else is going on. And that's not the best connector in this context. And the second statement is not a result of the first statement, right? It's an example of how conservation can happen. So the best answer is option A. Okay, second passage, thinking small and going green. In today's marketplace, there is a growing demand for environmentally friendly business practices. There's a growing demand for, right? I've already told you that I can't have a colon here because the colon can only come at the end of a complete sentence. So A is out. I don't need a comma between demand and for, right? This is just a preposition, demand for something. I can't have a semicolon in the middle of a sentence. They are both one sentence, both parts constitute one independent sentence. It's not that the semicolon needs to separate two sentences. So the best answer is no punctuation. There is a growing demand for environmentally friendly business practices. According to a 2009 survey by the Boston Consulting Group, 73% of consumers think it is important for companies to have good environmental records. Though there is limited evidence that greening initiatives increase employee morale, small businesses also stand to gain by going green. A 2014 University of Arkansas study found that the benefit of environmental initiatives were actually higher for small businesses than for Fortune 500 companies. Now, if you think about it, let's read the question first. At this point, the writer wants to present an argument that will be refuted in the next part of the sentence. So the next part of the sentence is saying small businesses also stand to gain by going green. So the expectation for the underlying part should be that there is the general idea, there is the general belief that going green is something that only works for big companies, right? But that is not true because small businesses also stand to gain. So the way it's written is definitely not the answer because we are not talking about employee morale. We are talking about the perception that small businesses may not benefit from going green. Despite the incentives offered by the federal government for the use of renewable energy, again, this doesn't address small businesses. While some claim that only large corporations can afford to invest in eco-minded initiatives, so this actually creates the basis for introducing how small companies can benefit from such initiatives, right? So I like C. Option D, as companies and individuals become increasingly concerned about dwindling natural resources. So again, this does not set up a discussion of small companies specifically. So C is the best answer. While some claim that only large companies can afford to invest in eco initiatives, small businesses also stand to gain by going green. So there is that contrast that is established. Okay, a 2014 University of Arkansas study found that the benefits of environmental initiatives were actually higher for small businesses than for Fortune 500 companies. So the way it's written seems good, right? The benefits of these initiatives were higher for small businesses than for. So I like this. It is concise and conveys the answer. Now, option B talks about than the initiatives of, but that's not correct because I'm comparing benefits. Benefits were higher for small businesses than for Fortune 500. So it's not about initiatives, it's about benefits compared to the benefits of. Now, the first thing is that I'm saying the benefits were higher for small businesses than for. So I don't like the preposition of. I would have liked to see for here. This should be for, benefits for. Also, I don't want to say compared to the benefits for when I can say than for. That's just concise. So C is not correct. And just than does not make sense because I'm saying the benefits were higher for small businesses than for Fortune 500 companies. So when I say than for, I'm talking about the benefits for. So I'm comparing benefits for one with benefits for another. If I just say than Fortune 500 companies, then it seems like I'm comparing benefits of small businesses with Fortune 500. And that's a wrong comparison because I'm supposed to compare benefits with benefits. So even D is not correct. The best answer is option A. Measures to reduce resource consumption can help small businesses both directly by lowering costs and raising revenues, and indirectly by attracting new customers and even employees. Founded in 1976, AJ's Auto Repair is a shop that has succeeded in improving its bottom line through an eco-friendly approach. Okay, so I'm supposed to provide the effective transition, an effective transition from the previous paragraph. So, right, so I'll come back to this. Let's just get a sense of what the paragraph is saying. By burning used oil for heat instead of chucking it out, instead of, okay, so here, this is a question about tone and style. And tone and style questions require you to choose the most formal option, right? So to chuck something out, to junk it, or to toss it out, those are not formal. Dispose of something. That is the most formal way of saying that, instead of disposing of it, instead of getting rid of it, by burning used oil for heat instead of disposing of it, the company saves up to $10,000 per year. Indeed, AJ's has saved a total of more than $200,000 over a 10-year period from its green effects. Okay, so now this, basically I'm saying AJ's has saved, right? So I should say it has saved a total of, or should I say it has saved more than? So I don't think a total of is needed. That's kind of redundant because when you say it has saved more than 200,000, that indicates that it's a total, right? So A is a redundant option. This is redundant. One second, I'll just plug in my tablet. So let me write this properly. This is a redundant option, right? You don't need to say that. Okay, what about C and D? If I say AJ's savings have exceeded, first of all, I can't say have exceeded more than, because more than indicates exceeded, right? So this also is a redundancy. The other problem is if I say AJ's savings have exceeded 200,000 over a 10-year period from its greening efforts, then I think I'm kind of shifting the subject from AJ's to AJ's savings, right? And I would like to keep the subject AJ's because when I say its greening efforts, it refers to AJ's greening efforts, right? So this is anyway wrong because of redundancy, but also I would like to keep the subject AJ's, so C is out. Now, again, total savings have been more. So this is again redundant. So the best answer is B, it has saved. Now, if you go back to 15, you was talking about small businesses in the previous paragraph. So I think the best way to introduce this paragraph is to say one such business, right? Because if I'm speaking of these small businesses in the previous paragraph, then one such business, the AJ's Auto Repair in Salem, Oregon, has succeeded in improving. So that gives a connection, that gives a sense of continuity with the previous paragraph. Now, founded in 1976, it's a repair, AJ's Auto Repair is a shop that doesn't really connect with the previous paragraph, so A is out. Servicing motorhomes as well as cars tells me what it does, but it doesn't connect with the previous paragraph, so it's not an effective transition. Remember, the question was about effectively transitioning from the previous paragraph. With a staff of about 15 people also doesn't make sense. So the best answer is D. Okay, let's just read the rest of the paragraph. Moreover, the AJ's example shows that companies can actually make money while generating less waste. AJ's recently participated in a program that provided environmentally safe trunk light switches to customers. The first 90 people who came in for a free switch replacement ended up spending over $26,000 in other repairs. So this tells me that it was also financially beneficial for AJ's. Okay, we have answered all questions so far, right? Another small business that has made sustainability profitable is Transcendentist, a dental practice in Berkeley, California. While most dental offices rely on wasteful, disposable products, Transcendentalist, however, introduced a line of reusable supplies. So when I read it, I notice that I don't need to say however, because I'm starting my sentence with while. And that indicates contrast, right? When I say while most dental offices rely on disposable products, Transcendentist introduced a line of reusable supply. So that already indicates a contrast. So I write D, but and whereas also are not needed because, as I said, while indicates contrast. Transcendentist introduced a line of reusable supplies, including cotton cloth headrests. Not only does Transcendentist save money by cutting spending on disposable products, it also profits by selling its reusable products to dentists across the country. So here again, the focus is on being environmentally aware as well as making a profit. Green initiatives also strengthen a company's image, which can yield tangible benefits. The founder of AJ's, Bob Anderson, estimates that the companies, okay, so this question is about the transition. So we'll come to this later. The founder of AJ's, Bob Anderson. So when I say Bob Anderson, I have a comma before Bob, so I should keep a comma after Anderson because my main sentence is the founder of AJ's estimates that. And this comma is not correct because I'm simply saying he estimates that. So this comma is not needed. So I need a comma after Anderson, but not after estimates. So that's B. The founder of AJ's, Bob Anderson, estimates that, wait, do I need a comma after Anderson? Couldn't I have said, yeah, I think I'll need a comma here because if I, yeah, it's not a modifier, right? The founder of AJ's is not a modifier. So I would need a comma after Bob Anderson because it's kind of breaking up the sentence. So this is a good question because they also have an option like D where you don't have a comma after Anderson. But I think we will need a comma here because my main sentence is the founder of AJ's estimates that the companies and so on. That the company's green reputation has increased its customer base by at least 18%. Okay, so let's first try and answer the question here, which can yield tangible benefits, rewarding the company's loyal customers, although image isn't everything, a key component in attracting new employees. So I think A is the best answer because I'm setting up the idea that it has increased its customer base. So it's a tangible benefit, it's a real benefit. It's not about rewarding loyal customers or attracting new employees, right? Now, which choice provides a second example that is more similar? Anderson ensures that the company stays in compliance with government regulations. In yet another example of their commitment to efficiency, Anderson and his team incorporated oil tanks into workbenches to save space. Some local chambers of commerce offer free greening assistance to small business owners. Transcendentis attracts up to 40 new clients per month, thanks in part to media attention for its green initiatives. So this is another example of how a company has benefited from going green, right? So I needed a second example that is more similar. So I know that Bob's AJ's shop has increased its customer base and Transcendentalist attracts new clients. So it's D. Companies with eco-friendly practices appeal not only to environmentally conscious clientele, but also to prospective employees. Okay, so this is word choice. The best answer is prospective. Prospective employees are employees that might join the company, right? They are prospects. They might ultimately become employees. So people who are looking to work, right? Perspective is, what you think about something, what's your take on something, right? Respective is used, for example, please sit in your respective seats, which is to say sit in the seat that's marked for you. And receptive is somebody who is open to ideas, open to suggestions, right? Receptive, able to receive. So here we are talking about prospective employees, employees that may join. Okay. Passage 3, storied architecture. A survey of the buildings designed by Ghanaian British architect David Ajay reveals no obvious signature style. His Moscow School of Management, Skolvoko in Russia, features a two-story, 150-meter wide circular base, on top of which is placed four differently sized rectangular prisms tiled in uneven herringbone patterns of transparent and colored glass panels. So on top of which I need to choose the correct answer for four differently sized rectangular prisms. That's a plural. So it can't be is or any of the is options. It has to be are, on top of which are four differently sized rectangular prisms, because prisms is plural, tiled in uneven herringbone patterns of transparent and colored glass panels, perhaps more accurately described as a complex of buildings than as a single building. The structure looks as though someone has balanced giant mismatched blocks on top of a disk. Another of Ajay's projects, the Francis A. Gregory Neighborhood Library in Washington, D.C., features exterior walls that resembled a tilted checkerboard. Alternating clear and opaque squares create a geometric diamond pattern. Okay, so it features exterior walls that resemble a tilted checkerboard, right? So the first thing is option A is out because this colon here is incorrect. Now, if I want to say alternating clear and opaque squares create a geometric diamond pattern, that is explaining how his exterior walls resemble a tilted checkerboard because there are alternating clear and opaque squares, right? So that looks like opaque and clear and then opaque again. Something like that, yeah? So that indicates that it is describing what the sentence is saying. So I would need a colon here because one, it comes at the end of a complete sentence. We are talking about the project's walls resembling a tilted checkerboard. And then I'm explaining that by saying alternating clear and opaque squares create a geometric diamond pattern. So that is why D is the best answer, because D sets up the information that comes after the colon. And in Doha, Qatar, a nondescript residence blends in with surrounding monochrome beige stone structures. Each of these designs is distinctive in that no particular texture, material, shape, or pattern identifies the building as one of Ajay's. So this paragraph kind of sets him up as this, architect who designs buildings that are different, yet he doesn't have a signature style. Each project is different from the others. So somewhat of a maverick. Okay. Ajay's architecture firm is staffed with professionals who represent a wide range of architectural perspectives. For each project, Ajay reviews extensive research about the locale where the building will be constructed. So before I answer this question, let me read the paragraph because this is about establishing the main topic of the paragraph. For each project, Ajay reviews extensive research about the locale where the building will be constructed. So reviews and examines is the same. So this is redundant. Okay. Reviews a lot of extensive, that is redundant because extensive means a lot of. Examines and reviews is also redundant. So option A, Ajay reviews extensive research about the locale where the building will be constructed. He considers the local governing structure and issues of social justice. he considers, right? I'm speaking in the simple present tense. He reviews extensive research. He considers the local governing structure. So this is part of the process. So the simple present tense is the best answer. Not past perfect, not continuous. I'm not talking about what he's doing now. I'm talking about his general approach to a new project, right? And not the past tense. He considers the local governing structure and issues of social justice. Various databases provide him with relevant geologic information. Ajay also studies the history of the site and of the people who will be using the building. So central is this research to Ajay's design process that his architecture firm employs a team of social scientists. So the first thing, obviously, I need to say Ajay's apostrophe S because I'm talking about his design process, right? So it's possessive. So it has to be Ajay's design process. And the apostrophe has to be before S because his name is Ajay, right? It can't be after S. So these are clearly wrong. And even A is wrong. Also, process will not have the possessive because that's not possessive. So the best answer is B. Okay, now what is the best introduction? Staffed with professionals, that is not a good introduction because I'm describing the work he puts into each project. So A is out. Some architecture experts have suggested there may be recurring trends. For example, the way Ajay uses walls not only to divide but also to create space. Again, this is talking about his completed works. This doesn't talk about his methodology while working. Given that Ajay will likely design more buildings over the course of his career, it's possible, even probable, that a signature style will still emerge. Again, not relevant. What is common to Ajay's buildings is something that can't be seen, a deeply researched, focused design process. This is the best answer because in the previous paragraph, I'm saying that he doesn't have a research, he doesn't have a signature style, but there is something common to all his projects, and that is the research that he puts into them. And this paragraph describes that research. Okay, I think we have answered all questions so far. This research process can inform Ajay's designs in any number of ways. In the case of Ajay's designs for the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, the research strongly influenced the shape of the building. While trying to better understand the story the museum would be telling, Ajay had become fascinated with traditional sculptures made by Yoruba craftspeople of Western Africa. By contrast, one type of headwear that recurred in the figures captured Ajay's imagination. The structure of this headwear, three inverted pyramids nested one atop the other, became the shape of the museum. Okay, so Ajay had become fascinated with traditional sculptures. In particular, one type of headgear captivated him, right? So I'm talking about the fact that he was fascinated with traditional sculptures made by the Yoruba craftspeople, and then one type of headgear that is in particular, right? It's not a new piece of information. I'm talking about how he was fascinated. So it's not moreover. It's not for these reasons, right? I'm kind of saying that he was following the work of Yoruba craftsmen and a particular type of headgear captured his imagination. So it's not B. And it's certainly not a contrast. So it's not A. In particular, one type of headgear that recorded in the figures captured Ajay's imagination. So captured Ajay's imagination that its structure became the shape of the museum. Because I need to kind of say that he was so captured, he was so influenced by the structure of the headwear, that he replicated that structure in the shape of the museum, right? So If I say it captured his imagination and then the headwear structure, that doesn't connect those two parts together the way option C does. So A is out. Captured Ajay's imagination as the structure. So again, I need to say that I need to bring that force into the sentence, right? I need to say that it was so powerful to Ajay that he ended up repeating it. Yeah, so it's C. At this point, the writer wants to reinforce the main point being made in the paragraph with a quotation from Ajay. Which of the following quotations from a lecture Ajay gave in 2016 best accomplishes this goal? This museum, Ajay says, comes into being after a 200-year quest to have a museum to really talk about the contribution of the African American community to the identity of America. Okay, let's keep that for now because the museum is devoted to African American culture. Ajay stated that he had wanted to see if he could create a museum where the figure and the form of the museum spoke to the story from the silhouette, from the immediate perception of it. Okay, I think this is more appropriate because I've just finished talking about the structure of the museum having come from a traditional headwear of the Yoruba craftspeople. And this option says that he wanted to create a museum where the figure and form spoke of the story from the silhouette, from the immediate perception for it. So I think this makes a better uh, sense for what the previous line is saying. But then again, I want to reinforce the main point. And the main point is his research strongly influenced the shape of the building. Okay. According to Ajay, we started with the Yoruba in West Africa because essentially the Yoruba were the greatest craftsmen. Okay, this is not relevant. I am not interested in how he reached the Yoruba, right? I'm interested in how that influence led him to design this structure. In describing the museum, Ajay makes the distinction that it's a narrative museum, so it's not about precious objects. Again, this is not about what kind of museum it is. I think between A and B, I think B is a better answer because I'm talking about the shape of the museum. That's the main point of the paragraph and how that shape is influenced by a traditional headwear. So I'll go with B. Other architects, of course, conduct and rely on research when they design buildings, but Ajay's body of work has been defined by it, right? Okay, so I'm saying other architects do rely on research, but his work is entirely defined by it. So A is a good answer. If I want to say however or nonetheless, I should start a new sentence, right? Because these are connectors. But is one of the fanboys. It's the one of the coordinating conjunctions that can come after a comma. But for however and nonetheless, which are connectors, I need to start a new sentence. So I can't have a comma before them. So they are wrong. And I can't certainly delete it because I am talking about what other architects do and what Ajay does. Whether or not you like Ajay's buildings, you have to admit that they are interesting to look at. Which choice results in the most effective conclusion for the passage? I don't think A is a good answer because it's like, why would the viewer be asked to like or not his paintings, right? This is an introduction to his work. Because of this process, each building tells a unique story, if not about Ajay's aesthetic style, then about the place in which and the people for whom it is built. Yeah, I think this is a good answer because this also reinforces the fact that he doesn't have a signature style because it is the research that determines what kind of building it should be. In his career thus far, Ajay has provided us with many spectacular buildings, each of which has some very interesting features and puts on display his considerable talent as an architect. Okay, fine. This is also talking about him in a positive way, but I don't think it's kind of reinforcing the passage's main point, which is to say that he is this brilliant architect who puts in research that determines uh, the purpose of the building, which is what B does better. So I would like B over C. D, architecture firms that don't include a similar research-based approach would do well to consider implementing one. Okay, this doesn't even talk about Agile. So, yeah, I think B is better because that captures the idea of how his research informs his architecture. Okay, the last passage, a voice from the ancient past. Though few people today have heard of her, a woman named Enheduanna is believed to be the world's earliest known writer. She held the important political role of high priestess in Mesopotamia's first major empire near present-day Iraq and Kuwait. So she held the important political role. Significantly important is redundant because significant and important mean the same. Position of an important role. So role and position repetitive, role and position. So A is the best answer because that has no repetition. She held the important political role of high priestess in Mesopotamia's first major empire in the 23rd BCE. Preserved in ancient artifacts, her writings include clear use of rhetorical devices, strategies used to effectively communicate an idea or opinion to an audience. The discovery of these artifacts has led scholars to reevaluate the popular notion that the gods and goddesses of the Mesopotamian Empire were similar to those of the ancient Greeks. Okay, so I don't think this is the main idea of the passage, but I'll come back to this question. I think the main idea would be the fact that it has forced historians to evaluate the beginnings of writing and the fact that it was a woman scholar from the Middle East, from West Asia, who was the first writer, right? So we'll come back to 35. Researchers suggest that Enheduanna's writings contain clear examples of establishing ethos, a rhetorical strategy through which authors persuade an audience of their credibility. The importance of religion to the Mesopotamians is reflected in a calcite disc dated to around 2300 BCE. Which choice provides the most effective transition from the previous sentence to the information? Okay, calcite disc dated to 2300 BC, discovered in 1926 when a British archaeologist was excavating the Temple of Ur. So obviously it has got nothing to do with religion here. On display in the Penn museums, again, this doesn't talk about Enheduanna's writings. And the earliest example of such writing, yeah, because if I'm talking about a rhetorical strategy, then this is a good fit for the earliest example of such writing. An ancient political conflict probably read, okay, this doesn't make sense. We're not talking about breaking these discs. So C is the best answer. The earliest example of such writing can be found in a calcite disc dated to around 2300 BCE, discovered in 1926 when a British archaeologist was excavating the Temple of Ur. The disc's front contains an inscribed image that depicts Enheduanna overseeing a religious procession. The back includes her written dedication of the artifact to Nana, the god of the moon. Okay, so here I have two independent sentences. The disc's front contains an inscribed image up to procession, and the back includes up to moon. So if there are two independent sentences, I can connect them with a semicolon. I can also connect them with a comma and, but not a semicolon and. That would be wrong. This is part of fanboys, but this is not in the options. A comma, simply a comma, creates a comma splice, so that's not allowed. And you definitely need a punctuation, so D is wrong. By authoring the dedication and through the disc's visual representation of her power, she announces her authority to those who might see the disc, and she asserts her devotion to Nana. Okay. Enheduanna's many hymns also incorporate rhetorical devices. One of her most famous is the Exaltation of Inanna, which tells the story of a political uprising that temporarily ended Enheduanna's role as high priestess. Later, she directly asked the goddess Inanna to give her back her old job, referring to their personal relationship. Okay, so first of all, this is way too informal. That's not how you would refer to something like a historical tale. Let her have some clout again. Again, this sounds more like what a mafia don would ask someone in prayer. So that's not correct. Revive her hegemony, right? Hegemony has a negative connotation, right? You generally have hegemonic power over someone, or for example, British hegemony during the colonial era. So I think D is a good neutral answer. She asked the goddess to restore her to power, referring to their personal relationship. Might your heart not be appeased towards me, great exalted lady? I have recited this song for you. Scholars suggest that the use of first person again establishes ethos because she's identifying herself to gods and mortals alike as the author of this song. Okay, so here I don't need any punctuation, right? So obviously, if I put a punctuation like a comma here and a comma here, then that would make this additional information, and that's not correct because this is needed, right? She's identifying herself to gods and mortals alike, right? I can't have a comma here because it's not a break in the sentence. Similarly, a comma here is not needed, right? She's identifying herself as the author of this song. It's a continuous sentence. So the answer is B. When she describes her political exile, she writes, I approached that shade, but I was covered with a storm. In addition, as researcher Roberta Binkley points out, her appeal to the sympathies of Inanna and her readers when describing her difficult situation have shown pathos, the rhetorical strategy of persuasion using emotion. Okay, her appeal to the sympathies of Inanna and her readers. So clearly, this sympathies is not possessive. So these two are out. And sympathies of Inanna and her readers. Readers is not possessive here because I'm not saying readers' sympathies, right? If I say readers' sympathies, readers is uh, then readers is possessive, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying sympathies of readers. So this is also wrong. A is correct. Okay. When describing her difficult situation, her appeal has shown pathos. Her appeal shows pathos, right? Appeal is singular, and so you need a singular verb. And the only verb that is singular is option C. Her appeal shows pathos, the rhetorical strategy of persuasion using emotion. To make this paragraph most logical, sentence 5 should be placed. I approached that shade, but I was covered with a storm. Okay, so this is about a political exile. Enheduna's many hymns also incorporate rhetorical devices. One of her most famous is this, which tells the story of a political uprising that temporarily ended her role as high priestess. Later, she directly asked the goddess, okay, so I'm going to need this to come here, right? Because I'm talking about the political uprising that ended her role. And this is an example of that. When she describes her political exile, she writes this. Later, she asked the goddess. So that example in sentence 5 should come after sentence 2. After sentence 2. Although writers throughout history have applied, right? Because if I'm talking throughout history, I need to use the perfect tense. It can't be will or are because I'm talking about something that is already happening or has happened in the past. So it's have applied rhetorical techniques to express opinions. Scholars typically associate the origins of devices such as ethos and pathos with ancient Greece, especially since Greek philosopher Aristotle coined the terms. Today, analysis of Endehuna's writing is influencing how scholars think about effective communication and adds to their understanding of how rhetoric emerged. The writer is considering deleting the underlying portion. I think we should keep it, because if I'm saying that scholars typically have associated these terms with ancient Greece, part of the reason is because Aristotle coined them. Kept because it provides a connection to information about, no, this is not about Mesopotamian. Kept because it explains why certain rhetorical devices are thought. Yeah, so this is a good answer. Deleted because it fails to explain. No, that's not what it is. It's not about explaining how Greeks use it. It's about the origin of these devices and Aristotle's coining of these terms. Deleted because it provides a detail that is unrelated. Okay, no, it's not unrelated. It talks about Greece. Okay, we do have a question left. So what was this? The discovery of these artifacts has led scholars to reevaluate the popular notion that the study of rhetoric's history should start with the ancient Greeks. The very earliest forms of writing were developed as a mean to keep records of grain. And Neiduna was the daughter of Sargon. Okay, so I'm trying to reevaluate. Okay, it will be B, right? Because I'm trying to say that the popular notion is that the study of rhetoric started with the Greeks, but the discovery of Enheduna's writings would make the scholars reevaluate that notion, because the Greeks came 2000 years after her. So obviously you need to reevaluate the fact that rhetoric started with the Greeks. Okay, so that was the writing section. Let's grade our answers. I have the answer key here. Okay, writing. So DBACC, DBACC, DBCCBA, DBCCBA. Okay. 12 DCADC, DCADC, 17 BDAB, BDAB, DC, DC. Okay, let's go to 23rd. CDDAA, CDDAA, 28, BCC, BCC, 31, BAB, BAB, okay. 34, ABCCD, ABCCD, 39, BACB, BACB, and DB. Okay, great. So we got all correct. Hope this exercise was useful. I think these section walkthroughs can really help you understand how to answer questions, how to understand passage flow. With this, we have completed the writing and math solutions for the May 2021 US paper. I will be uploading the reading solutions soon, passage-wise. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and get the notifications for those. I'll see you guys soon then. Take care. Bye-bye.